There was no evidence that the document had ever been reviewed by police, no stamp, no tag, no file number. It was a loose page, overlooked for decades, buried in paperwork that no one had bothered to open. She brought the memo to Davis without delay. He examined it silently, reading each line twice before turning the sheet over. There were no identifying marks on the back, but the content on the front spoke volumes. This was not a photocopy, nor a reproduction from an archive. It was a contemporaneous record, apparently from inside the organization involved in the transport, listing confidential details about the operation and bearing a signature from someone officially uninvolved. The implications were immediate. If Holt had access to the route before the van departed, then either the security of the operation had been breached from within, or Holt had maintained a channel of communication with those who had access to sensitive logistics long after his official departure. Davis knew that if this document was authentic, it could reopen questions that law enforcement had abandoned 3 decades earlier. Back in 1988, investigators had failed to identify a leak or insider support. They had no way to confirm whether Holt had coordinated with someone still working at the union or whether he had access to restricted materials through informal connections. But this piece of paper proved one thing beyond speculation: Holt had knowledge he wasn't supposed to possess. And the physical document survived the decades only because it had been misplaced, bundled into an unrelated ledger, and forgotten in a stack of obsolete financial records. The implications for the original investigation were significant. With this new lead, there was a reason to review the original suspect list, to examine who had attended that particular meeting, and to question whether the meeting had been recorded in any official minutes. If it hadn't, the existence of the memo raised further suspicions. Who preserved it, how it ended up among donated materials, and why it had never surfaced in the original probe were questions that still had no answers. But for the first time in over 30 years, the trail wasn't cold. Lisa had uncovered a document that never should have existed, bearing a signature that never should have appeared on it, describing details that had never been publicly released. The silence that had defined the case since 1988 had finally been broken. Mark Davis began with the most direct line of inquiry: the life and records of Edward Holt. The man whose signature had surfaced on a document he had no official reason to sign had died over a decade ago, but his paper trail was not yet cold. Holt had left his job at the transportation union in 1987. After that, he had worked in a local auto repair shop, earning modest wages and living in a small house on the east side of Detroit. There were no red flags in his financial history, no luxury